Thank you ever so much for letting me into Lincolnshire for this short presentation about how do we get men to talk. So first of all, I work for Men's Craft. Men's Craft are initially a Norwich-based charity, and they help set up a whole bunch of different organisations, including the local Norwich Men's Shed. They put on drama productions, they support people with storytelling activities, they support organisations in promoting health for men in a range of settings, which is great. In the last 3 years, I've been employed by them as a prevention and positive activities team leader. So I run a small group of workers across Norfolk now. It started off just in Norwich, but the role was deemed important enough to spread it out across Norfolk in supporting men that are beginning to think about suicide, which is a ridiculously important topic. And I don't ever take it lightly, but I think humour is often used in sort of dark areas, and it's okay to use a bit of humour in trying to connect with what we're doing. I know that men have huge issues talking. I know from my own personal experience, I've had huge issues opening up and getting to the point and trying to find help. So in enabling myself to do that, I needed to begin to understand myself better. In a lot of ways, I needed to stop taking myself so seriously, to be able to take myself seriously in the spaces of my life that needed that. My background, personally, I've worked in loads of different settings, including sort of behavioural need children's homes. I've been a teacher for a large portion of my life. I worked in prisons, and now I support men who are at risk of suicide. One of the things I want to state about what we're doing today is I'm a strong believer in environments and how environments are conducive and supportive to us being able to talk in a way which makes sense to us. So often we need to find local or cultural reference points which enable us. Sometimes it's as simple as talking about the local football team, but I'll come back to football and sports later. Sometimes they can be a barrier. And what are the different barriers to talking? If we're not used to asking for help, or we're unwilling to ask for help, what are we meant to do? If we don't necessarily have the roadmap or the sort of the emotional literacy to go forward in some of these spaces, what are we meant to do? So the aim of today is thinking about what we need and then potentially planning on what we do next. Now, common experiences that are shared by men that ideate around suicide are basically their experience of trauma. So often we'll look into things like mental health, stress, anxiety, depression. There'll be issues around relationships or relationship breakdown. I work with a number of men that have been victim to domestic abuse and also perpetrators of. We have people with addiction issues around drug and alcohol. A lot of guys come to us presenting issues around social isolation, issues connected to their physical mobility. Some guys have an offending history. Sometimes there's issues at work, not being able to communicate well with other people that they're working with. On more serious topics, we do have people presenting with historical abuse. They've been victims of crimes, and we're connecting them up with expert help from local police forces to help them investigate that and seek support from that. Sometimes guys are facing up to issues around bereavement. Also, we're looking at LGBTQ plus discrimination, racism, also looking at how people are supporting themselves through this time of COVID too. So being able to have a vague, because I'm not an expert in all of those things, but a vague expertise in all of those things enables me to start a lot of conversations. And I think being able to start those can often be a really, really key thing. Often we start on questions like, oh, tell me about yourself. What do you do? But they can sometimes be a little bit too straight to the point. And it can be a little bit awkward because sometimes people don't want to go, oh, I've been at home. suffering with mental health issues for the past 3 years, and no one's asked me any questions and don't really feel comfortable in talking about it. Or I've just lost someone really dear to me, and we don't necessarily have the wherewithal within us to be able to discuss things. So it can be interesting to come up with questions that don't ask for personal or deep information straight away. So it might sound a bit daft, but maybe what Tom was just saying, maybe we can write some in the chat. Often, if guys are feeling really uncomfortable with opening up or starting a conversation, we just go at it from a completely different tangent. When was the last time you went to the circus? When was the last time you ate something really weird? They can be interesting things because immediately you think and you go, oh, I haven't been since I was 8. And you're straight into that memory. You're straight into being able to talk about that. So what I'd like to do is see if we as a group can come up with some of these slightly different style of questions. Sometimes this approach doesn't work. Sometimes it is more about the environment. Sometimes it's more about where that person's coming from. And not knowing where people are coming from can be quite a tricky thing. It's not to make light of people's situations, but sometimes it is about finding different ways in. Sometimes people don't want to just go straight into my life's a mess, please help me. But you know, we can see where we can go with that. So with this, it's about enabling people to step into that place of being bold, brilliant, and brave. So I'm really good at asking questions. Anybody want to ask me a question about the last time I went to the circus? It really is just a step over a sort of a step through a doorway. I'm happy to ask, but I'm also happy to be asked. So I am not necessarily phobic of clowns, but I'm super suspicious of clowns. There's something about them, just, you know, yeah, that sort of, oh. And in that way, sometimes we can feel that way about conversation. Blokes can feel that way about conversation. And it's about opening up and putting ourselves into a different space. One of the things, well, something that I'm going to go on to talk about later, is part of what Men's Craft does is it creates environments where people can talk about stuff, and going to the cinema is key. We run an online cinema group as well as a monthly cinema club where we take guys from all over Norfolk, because they come into Norwich, the city in the centre of the county there, to go to a film. And we generally try not to watch good films. Good films are deaf to conversations, because people go, do you like that film? They go, yeah, it's a good film. I go, yeah, I thought it was a good film too. And then the conversation finishes. Nothing else happens. So watching slightly iffy films or slightly edgy films can be more interesting. I don't like horrors, and I wouldn't necessarily take people that are not feeling mentally very well to go and watch a horror film. But watching sort of thrillers or watching dramas, if there's something in there to complain about, we do like to complain about things. Now, James Bond is one of my favourite topics because he basically hits every single note that I need to work on within, well, with being a Men's Craft employee. We're looking at positive masculinity. That guy's got deep-rooted issues. We're looking at treatment of women and misogyny. There's some deep-rooted issues. And these are the things which I love talking about after a film like that. I work with lots and lots of guys who have lots and lots of very, very different opinions. And I don't ever try and catch people out or trip people up. There's no value or need for that. I like the idea of challenging certain concepts that are put in place already and just going, doesn't seem very fair. But that's just my point of view, because it creates conversations. I remember the cinema being quite a safe place for me. I think it's a great area to escape. And one of the reasons why we created this group was one of the guys I was working with He said, I go to the cinema as a way of sort of treating myself, rewarding myself. But often I'll go on my own. And so the relief I get is 2, maybe 3 hours. And then I come out and it all comes flooding back in. So how do we then feel about things then? And so we started looking at different ways. And we believe in this process called co-creation, which is just because I know how to talk to people, or I know different routes through the mental health system to support people that are at risk of suicidal ideation, doesn't mean that I can set up things straight away. And actually supporting men's ideas, co-creating with people, working alongside people, seems like a really, really positive way to work. So what we're looking at is seeing the value in finding safe areas to talk in. One of the things I was talking about earlier was there being potentially more trickier places to talk around. So where are we when we talk to other men? This is something for the chat. So examples being, I'm on the telephone when I talk to other men, but sometimes men are in physical places. So let's have a minute or two just to think about where potentially we are when we're talking with other men, and look at what those environments necessarily look like. I might say, well, I do this. So there you go, dog walking. That's a thing that I do. I go for a dog walk with my dad. So where else do men speak to each other? What do they look like? Work? Anywhere else? Yeah, pub. So we're thinking about the pub. Where else? Yeah, sport, gin, down the bookies too. What does this say? What does this say about men? It says quite a lot about men. It says that we need environments where we feel safe to talk. Now, football gives us something to talk about. Shared interests help us talk about things. Unfortunately, some of these things seem to be related to things which can rapidly become issues. So the pub has a huge issue being related to smoking, drinking, football. Generally, it's okay, but there are sort of areas of football where people feel that it's not massively inclusive. There's huge issues around racism, homophobia, huge issues around, well, maybe not so much anymore, but football hooliganism from sort of my youth. It used to be quite a scary thing where people would get physically beaten up if they went to an away match. It was a running the gauntlet a bit. And then also looking at sort of the gambling side of blokes talking in the bookies, but that being related to gambling. So how do we not necessarily negate that? It's not my intention by any means to stop men from doing what they want to do. But what do I do as part of Men's Craft to enable blokes to talk without necessarily it being sport related, without it being gambling related, without there being the use of alcohol or drugs? So the work initially starts off as one-to-one phone work or face-to-face work one-to-one. So someone will be phoned into the service, they need support. That's what we'll do. After a few sessions like that, we'll meet and go for a coffee. Potentially there's other things that we do around talk groups, walk and talk activities, and then different drop-in activities. I've already told you about cinema groups. We also offer art, music, board game evenings, have a fantastic quiz online as well. Lots of guys will come in, and it encourages people to make simple connections with each other. We understand this because for the past 5 years, Men's Craft have been asking what men want in these environments. What we can safely say through the data we've collected is that men want to be heard. They want safe environments. They want consistent support. They want to be able to witness how they're feeling, which sounds maybe a little bit complex, and I'll come back to that maybe later. But sometimes we have issues with expressing how we feel because we're not quite sure about where these emotions are going to take us. Building trust does start one-to-one. It does start with the person, with home visits, with short groups, with coffees, with drop-ins. But then peer support is really important because it enables us to witness other people's situations without feeling the need to fix things. Oh, I'm really sorry that this happened to you, but you can do this, this, and this. Blokes don't necessarily want to be told how to be fixed. I think it's part of our sort of collective male psychology. But actually understanding and valuing those experiences and not having them weighed or having to justify them can really help. It's also not retelling it from our own perspective. Oh yeah, I had a situation just like that happened to me. Actually, it can take months and months for a guy to get to a stage where he can go, this is where I am, and this is how I feel about it. And I just feel really, really pleased to be able to say it in front of someone else because I haven't been able to. And that's a huge thing. That's a huge thing. If we can get to a point where we have friends with different political, religious, ethnic viewpoints, that's a really good thing. And we can learn to like someone without liking everything that they like, because I think that's impossible. Sort of psychologically and philosophically, I can't like everything about John Smith, my invisible friend next to me. It just isn't going to happen. It's but sometimes people will present with misogynistic attitudes, and when they come up, I say, you know, we're in the 21st century now. That view's not okay. I know I'm not going to be able to change your viewpoint, but I am going to be able to say safely, without upsetting you, that you can't speak about women like that anymore. And it's, I think, asserting our own boundaries, I think, is really, really key. It doesn't diminish me, but it does diminish me if I don't do anything about it. I think there are all those sort of famous sayings about the war, you know, terrible things happen if good people don't do anything about it. You know, you've got to sweat the small stuff sometimes and just go, actually, that's not okay. I had a really interesting conversation with a group of guys about people taking the knee and just like, what's that all about? You know, oh, this doesn't make sense. Just like, well, maybe we need to look into it more. And so we did some Googling and reading in the newspapers, got some different newspapers, and some different points of view. And it was interesting seeing where people align themselves. It's not necessarily really all that important to have issues that we fall out over, but I think it's important that we have things that we can talk about in a constructive way, because it then enables us to be more informed. I think just hearing arguments from your own side of the fence just reinforces the fact that you're on your side of the fence. That's, you know, I really like being challenged and being told that I'm wrong. I need to change my viewpoint, or I need to stop being a snowflake, or I need to stop being so sexist, or, you know, I'm not by any means perfect. I don't think anyone is. And I think it's really, really important to go back to this idea of having safe environments in which we can talk, which enable people to do things. So the next thing I've got for us is finding out more. Like, I like the idea of playing with different things. And often, like I said at the beginning, sometimes humor enables us to understand things better. I think the best comics are people that understand social situations or social awkwardness and kind of put a finger in it and rummage around and go, that's what life's like. And that's a good thing. So for those of you wanting to add to the chat, excuse me, when's the worst time to start a conversation? Yeah, Christmas lunch. I'm really sorry, everyone, but I've saved it up until this point to let you know that my dog died this year. It's just like, what are you doing? That don't make sense. What about at a gig? Ring, just wanted to, I really need to let you, it just doesn't work. I could be quite contentious and say, is alcohol a good thing to add to improve our ability to have a conversation? Some people would say, oh yeah, I need at least half a pint to loosen me up a bit and get me chatting to people. But then that might exclude quite a lot of people. Yeah. Other people can ruin a good conversation. When I've had my own personal experience of mental health issues, and one of the things that took me a really long time to get over was being able to talk about what I saw as private things in earshot of other people. So it wasn't just people I don't trust, it was anyone. Just wouldn't talk. It's like, no, can't talk. And it would drive my family absolutely to despair. So yeah, they found it really, really tricky, really, really hard to do that. So when we look at bad times or non-conducive times for conversation, well, what does this tell us about better times to start a conversation? If we're in a situation where we've got a mate and he wants to talk to us, or we can see someone's in distress at work, what are we going to do? How are we going to start that conversation? I need to speak to you. Follow me. Might not be a very friendly way of doing it, but it might be that we need a way in. Oh, John Smith, I can see that you're having a bit of a tough time. Do you want to go for a coffee? Could be. Blokes find that sort of thing quite tricky though, because we don't necessarily like putting ourselves out there to be rejected or to be taken down. And so creating environments where people feel more able, I think is important. And that's about our own ability to maintain our boundaries. Most people come from a viewpoint, I think, that talking isn't all that. People don't really want to do it. People don't really feel the need to do it. And one of the things I've noticed in the work that I do is that one-to-one, if you give people the right environment, often dog and bone, give them a telephone call, say, I'll call you later, we'll meet for coffee. Everything all right? Tell us about it. I'm not trying to fix. I'm not trying to tell people what to do. I'm just listening. And that is a huge thing that one person can do for another. And I think the more we're able to do it, the more supportive we can be to the people around us. You've put in here, when you're worried what you're about to say and they won't like it. Yeah, truth bombs. Yeah, I steer clear of truth bombs. I think if you've got that feeling, and generally, I don't know about you, but I get that feeling in my guts. I'm not generally clever enough to know that, oh yeah, if I say this, I'm not very good at playing chess. Do you know what I mean? I can't sort of see where the moves are going a few steps ahead. If I'm doing this, it's going to be a bit tricky. I suppose it's really, really key to give people the opportunity to be heard. And often we're not ready to do that. And so when we talk about rubbish environments, yeah, Christmas dinner isn't the time. A gig isn't the time. Down the pub, maybe not the time, because the environment isn't ready. When other people are around that we don't like or are winding us up, that's not the time. So we have the ability to create boundaries and create opportunities for people. I got much better in my own experience of mental health with my ability to say no. I think part of my recovery kind of linked up to that sort of yes man. Oh, yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that. I'll do that. Oh yeah, I want to be better straight away. And it kind of almost hopped over the fact that there was lots of things that I needed to talk about, lots of things that weren't right, lots of things that needed addressing because I'd left them unattended. I hadn't given them due care and attention. And it's really, really key to give yourself time and space to do that. But yeah, going back to that thing around saying something that people won't like. If you're getting that gut feeling, you can say, that must be really hard. What you're going through is really tough. You don't have to agree or disagree with what people are. Do you know what? I don't know enough about this, but I'm really happy to listen to what you've got to say. That's a perfectly fine thing to say to people that are into stress. It's really, really key, I think, for blokes to feel that they can enable these things. And it is a relatively simple thing to do. I think the thing that puts us off is exactly what you're saying, is that people won't like what you've got to say. Well, if we're in that position of power, then we have a degree of authority and we can control ourselves with that authority. We can control ourselves with those boundaries. We can tell ourselves no. We're not going to tell them things that they don't like. But when the environment's right, we can. And so when looking at different environments, when looking at different relationships, if you're speaking to someone that works for you, that's a really different relationship than to say speaking to someone in your family or speaking to a peer. And understanding those relationships and understanding how that sort of level of communication works can really, really support us in feeling more confident in how to handle those sorts of conversations. Being able to direct people as well. If someone's opening up about things, telling you all sorts of personal information, stuff that's making you worried about their mental health or their physical health, direct them to their GP, direct them to 111. This would be a really, really important thing for you to do. Also, something that I'm not doing very well at the moment is allowing silence. The ability to say no, I think, is a real key thing. Being able to say, no, this isn't the right time for us to speak. I want to support you, but maybe let's look at a different place, a different space where we can carry on this conversation. Right now, it isn't working. So where would you like to go and carry on this conversation? How would we like to carry on this conversation? These are good things to say to people. Men are good at putting things off. I certainly am. And they also are really good at putting things off which would support their physical or mental health. I can see evidence of this in the work that I do, that when I speak to guys about using helplines and online services, the amount of guys will come back to me and go, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not using a helpline. I'm like, well, why not? Just don't see the point. Like, oh, that's interesting. Lots and lots of helplines are essentially about supporting people with information and the ability for them to be heard, witnessed, not fixed, just to be able to let it out, just to be able to talk about something. On the old mobile phone for suicide prevention, we have something called Stay Alive, which has all the helplines on it. It has local authority information on it. national, international support, myth-busting information. A lot of blokes that I speak to initially go, oh, I can't talk to you about my thoughts around suicide because that'll make me want to do it more. And it's a complete myth. You know, talking about things generally makes us understand them more. Someone that is actively taking their own life or actively seeking to take their own life is someone that I refer on to crisis teams in my area or higher level up mental health teams, because that's their job. It's their job to support them. I'm there at the beginning. And so understanding that you can find support from lots of different places is a good thing. An activity called I'm in Trouble. So that's all we know so far. And what I want you guys to do within hopefully 20 questions is find out what's going on. I'm someone that you work with and you have noticed that I'm calling in sick quite a lot. That's all you know. Yeah, I'm feeling pretty hungover. Anyway, I've got to get on with work. Thanks, Jack. Thanks, Tom. I don't really want to talk about what I did last night. No, it wasn't fun. Yeah, just got lots going on. Yeah, just not making good decisions. Yeah, I don't know how much help talking will do. What decisions? I got caught drink driving last night. I'm just really ashamed. It's not something that I've ever, I'll never get in trouble. So I don't know what's going on. It's a really tricky thing. I don't even know why I'm talking about it. So yeah, super. I just don't know. I've got to go to court or something. Yeah, that would be really great. Yeah, I'd love to go for a coffee. I just need a bit of time just to figure out what's going on because it all seems to be going wrong. That's a big question. Yeah, what made me drink? I just, I just finding that I'm on my own quite a lot. My partner just left like last week, and ever since they're gone, I'm just a mess. Don't really know what to do, just on my own. So got drunk, drove home, got caught, going to lose my license. Probably means I'm going to lose my job. I appreciate that, Jack. Thank you. Yeah, just not really quite sure what I need to do next. And at that point, I'm getting loads of help. Anyone being touched upon by people in trauma or crisis. It's a tricky thing to have to deal with. And actually being able to say yes or no, being able to offer boundaries, being able to provide safe environments for people to talk, being able to choose those based on the knowledge of what you know about that person. All those are really key. Being able to listen to them, knowing that you might not be able to fix what's going on for them. Certainly can't fish back a absent partner or a split marriage. But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be able to talk about it or that you're not able to hear them out. If things happen where you're just like, oh, I'm really not sure, you can fall back on the great phrase, which is, do you know what? You need some expert help with this because I don't feel qualified or capable to understand it. I'll listen for as much as I can, but you're going through a lot. That's okay. That's okay to let someone know that because you're validating their emotions. Often, traumatic things and irrational situations occur from us not being able to validate our own situations, our own experiences. And that's where traumatic things come from. The body and the brain not being able to understand a situation is often a really good signifier of something traumatic happening. It's just how it is. And so if we give people time and space to be able to say, hey, what's up? Where are you? Where are you at? Let's talk, let's chat, let's find a safe, quiet place to do that. Let's direct you to other people that can help. These are good things to be able to do. Asking the question, is everything okay? Well done. Someone did that. You're okay. Finding a space where we can go, moving that on, enabling them to have a space where they feel safe. This is really, really good stuff. I think also validating where they are emotionally is really important. And a lot of guys I work with go, I don't talk about my emotions. You can't make me talk about my emotions. That's a place I'm not going. And I'm like, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And you're absolutely right. There's no value in me going, getting a crowbar out and going, I'm going to get those emotions out of you somehow. They just, there is no value in that. But you seem upset and I'm here if you want to talk. That's okay. I'm just stating what I see. I'm not trying to use power in a horrible way. I'm not trying to bully someone. I'm not trying to put them in a position where they feel undervalued. I want to value people. And I think one of the reasons why we're good at being human beings is our capacity to be kind to people and our capacity to put ourselves out. Most people, if they see something awful happen, will stop and try and rectify that. I think it's something like 99.999% of people. And that's because there are people out there that have psychotic issues and don't process information properly. Pretty much everybody wants to help. Pretty much everybody wants to help people make things better. And that's a really good thing to know about humanity. That's a really, really good thing to know about people. To be heard, safe environments, consistent support, witnessing people's emotions and their need to express them, building trust. All these things are things that help men talk. And a lot of it is stuff that we already know. None of this is news to anybody, I'm sure. But it's about having that confidence and having that ability to take that step to ensure that we feel enabled. Because in enabling ourselves, we're able to enable other people. Feeling confident in ourselves means that we're able to feel confident in other people. Personally, I spent lots and lots of time feeling really, really unconfident and unable to do, a huge amount of things. Wasn't able to leave the house, wasn't able to look after my basic hygiene needs when I was really, really mentally unwell. Not very proud to say it, but that's where I was at some point in my life. I then went and got help through the GP, went and got help through therapeutic channels, got CBT, so cognitive behavior therapy, went and got help from therapists, all through the NHS. Took a while, but eventually, with all this help and with all this talking, put things back to a place where, annoyingly, I'm more confident than I ever have, I've ever been. There are lots and lots of things which used to get in my way and used to really wind me up. And because I've had various different helps from various different people, I don't seem to get in my way anymore. It seems a bit of a missed opportunity if I don't go through the day and have a little breakthrough somewhere. But that's just me. One of the things I do, and one of the things that Men's Craft prides itself on, is the ability to get men in different environments to talk to each other. And that is essentially group work. No one likes the idea of group work. Why are we so resilient to it? We don't want to open up in front of other people. That's not me. I'm not doing that. Do people turn around and enjoy the experience? Some people do, some people don't. And that's absolutely fine. What I'd like to do is give us the opportunity to have an experience of that. So some of the shorter groups that I run on 3 basic principles. Seeing as we have 5 or 6 people here. Hello, my name's Ed. Welcome to our 15-minute group. It's going to last from now until about 12:30. There are 3 rules. Confidentiality. Now, in a space like this in the 21st century, what does confidentiality mean? It means maybe don't talk about things that you don't want other people to know about. Second thing is silence is okay. We're so overly stimulated that most people will know someone that's got 2 or 3 of these things, and they're constantly doing something else, or they're tapping away, and actually silence is okay. 5, 10, 15 seconds worth of silence is really good. Being able to sit and just hear your body relax in the company of other people is a remarkably good thing to start getting into the habit of doing. And the last thing is that often people will come to groups and go, oh, I went to one once and someone just hijacked it. Someone was just on transmit and all they did was talk for about half an hour. Well, because we co-create, because we work with people, one of the ways around that is if someone does go on transmit, if someone does hijack, someone does talk for more than a couple of minutes, I'll let's open up the conversation a bit, just to remind people not to do that, because other people don't necessarily want to hear lots from you. Be sparing of what you've got to say. So that'd be an introduction. Really nice thing to do at the beginning is check in for about 30 seconds. So this is me teaching you how to speak to groups of other people. So how's my week been? Well, often we do this as since the last time we spoke, or since the last time I saw you, how have things been? I've never seen you before. Been a bit poorly this week. Haven't had COVID, but had that flu. Felt like I got hit by a snot tractor. That's pretty much how I sum up my week. It's been pretty grim. Quite sweaty. Too much information yet? Other things that have been going on. My neighbour brilliantly knocked on my door because my dog escaped last night. And the first time I've been out of bed in about 48 hours. So I had to go and find my dog, run off down the road. By the time I got down to the bottom of the road, my dog had come home, sneaked in through a gap in the garage. So that would be an example of a check-in. Doesn't have to be anything like that. But that is how we try and encourage people to speak to each other, just getting loosened up. So if you don't want to talk, no one has to, because silence is okay. That's rule number 2. And so if you don't want to talk, just say pass. But I will pass it on to someone else. And I can show that on this system by muting my own microphone. So if someone else wants to tell me how they are in 30 seconds, that would be great, because it will help this part of what I'm trying to do. Cheers. One of the things I look at is coping strategies that we use. And not all coping strategies are good. I used to like running. But in cold weather, I have aches and pains and I stopped doing it. And then I use that as an excuse to have a go at myself. Go, oh, you should really do it. Oh, a bit of a loser, Ed. Come on, get up, get at it. You can be better than this. And self-chatter and self-talk are a huge thing around motivation. But we slip into quite significant patterns of behavior, especially if we're reliant on other people, especially if we're reliant on things like alcohol, especially if we're reliant on the world wanting to get better. We're being fed lots and lots of pretty drastic news a lot of the time. And I'm not saying to people, don't watch the news, just saying control the amount of news you watch. Be boundaried. Take news on board, but let it serve you. I am not going to solve the global climate crisis, or I'm not clever enough to solve COVID-19. So I'm happy with that. I'll do my recycling. If people want to know, I've had 2 vaccinations, but people don't have to get vaccinated if they don't want to. God, there's another conversation. Had lots of interesting conversations with people like that. Anyway, At this point, if someone was doing what I'm doing, I would go, ahead, let's open up the conversation. I really, really appreciate the fact that you're talking and not asking, you're just telling us, because it's something that we've got out of the habit of doing. Technological age and all the rest of it, we seek people that have the same opinions as ourselves. Let's not do that anymore. Let's just be brave enough to tell people how we feel. Towards the end of my talking groups, I generally let people know that there's 10 minutes left, because we do it for about an hour. And generally what I say is, oh, we've got about 10 minutes left. We've got 1 minute left. Where did that time go? I don't know. It's interesting, because when we give just 15 minutes of time just to talk about things, or just to be receptive to other people talking about things, time does strange stuff. I'll draw this meeting to a close, but I just wanted to say, I like this process because it helps me realize that things are on my mind. Sometimes it takes me sitting in silence around a group of half a dozen other blokes to go, I didn't realize I was so annoyed about the news. Or I hear someone else saying something and it's almost as though they're speaking for me. It's amazing. Like, we can connect in so many different ways, and often it's just that ability to take that step, to just say, having a bit of a rubbish day. Actually, do you know what? Today's not been too bad. I was really nervous about coming along to this, but it's not quite as bad as I thought it would be. Silence, confidentiality, and having someone to be boundaried with it. These are the things that we're talking about. If we can apply them to ourselves, we can actually help other people with them as well. I think sometimes when we get to the other side of conversations, we have to look at giving someone the ability to be valued. So I'm glad that you're talking to someone. I'm glad that you're getting it out. I'm glad that you're being brave and bold and brilliant enough to actually just talk about some of the tough things that you're going through. And people go through tough times all the time, and it's brilliant that you're thinking about it, and it's important that you keep talking about it and you talk to the right people about it. Speak to your GP. They'll be able to give you a referral to community mental health team. They'll be able to support you with stress, anxiety, depression. Talk to you about the Stay Alive mobile app. And there's a whole range of information out there that we really want to be able to use to make us feel okay, to make us feel better, to enable us to be in a better place. A lot of guys I speak to on a daily basis say, I don't deserve it. I'm starting to have these thoughts, Ed. I'd just, be better off, the world would be better off without me. They're ruminating thoughts. There are these issues around self-talk and self-chatter. And when I talk about self-talk, I think top athletes train their self-talk. So it's the voice inside your head, without wanting to sound too psychiatric, saying, get up, get on. It's the way that we deal with stress. Some people have that voice and it's their dad or their grandpa or an important male psychological figure in their life. Other people don't have that voice at all. It's different for everybody. But using that motivation and enabling other people to use that motivation, I think, is a really, really key thing for us, because we can't enact change unless we enact change on ourselves. We have to look after ourselves mentally, physically, and in a way, there's another aspect to that. People gathering together and doing nice things together. There's a spiritual side to it. I don't adhere to any religious ideologies, but I think there has to be capacity for people to go, what about those bigger philosophical questions? I was listening to an amazing podcast last night about Fermi's law, Fermat theorem or something, about, why haven't aliens got in contact with us yet? And I like all that stuff. I like being challenged and listening to new things. Go back 10 years when I was really unwell, I wouldn't have touched that with a barge pole. That would have driven me to distraction. But actually, bit by bit, I like expanding my world. I like having things for myself. I like doing things for myself. I used to think, no, I've got to concentrate on other people. But the help and the support that I got through talking and speaking to other people meant that I was more able to concentrate on what I needed to do and the help I needed to give myself. Because the work that I do now on a daily basis, I'm absolutely useless to other people if I can't look after myself. But that's got to be applied to all of us. We've got to be able to look after ourselves. We've got to value ourselves. We've got to see that there's value in talking and sharing and being part of something bigger. These are really, really key things. Attending something like this, I hope, will have a positive impact on your ability not only to look after yourself, but look after the people around you. Not only to be able to do that, but have an impact on your local communities. I think often it starts with just being told that it's okay. It's okay to feel the way that you're feeling. What's not okay is to do nothing about it. And I think being inquisitive is really the key. Oh, I don't know why they were so upset. I didn't ask. Well, we can ask. We can care. We can get under the skin of a situation, of our own situation. We can work shoulder to shoulder with people. We can make sure that the decisions that we make are based on positive coping strategies rather than coping strategies we're aware don't work for us. Every time I used to get stressed, I used to smoke a cigarette. I used to be a big smoker until someone told me it's just breathing exercises, Ed. And I was like, no, it's not. It's smoking. It's great. It's nicotine. It's this, that, and the other. Smoking's great. No, it's not. It's a negative coping strategy. It's to hide anger. It's to hide dealing with things. You actually physically take yourself to another environment to do it. They created smoking sheds or people now have to go outside. Oh, smokers have the best conversations. It's generally because they've got a lot to talk about because they're quite angry people. It's an interesting thing just to do, just to have a look at. I'm very happy to be called out on that. Very happy to be called out being wrong on that. Not all smokers are angry, but we know it's not very good for our health. So people, hopefully, will be able to make informed decisions about not smoking and choosing different ways to be mindful. It's not all about eating porridge, though, or running or doing things that you don't want to do, feeling left behind or feeling left out. Going back to that positive self-talk, that ability to make decisions based on things that you want rather than things that you're being sold or things that you're being told should help you. I want to thank everybody for listening. I don't get the opportunity to talk like this very often. It's often the other way around. I feel like one of my own clients, which is great, valued experience for me. But I'm really, really happy to answer any questions you've got through the chat, or if you want to email questions in to the people that are putting this on for me to answer privately, really happy to do that. This isn't just about this time and then the next time for mindfulness and then the next time for fitness and mental health. It's about men feeling confident and able to help each other out by talking and listening. It's not about solving things either, but often solutions can be found, ways of coping can be found, and changes in our behaviour can happen. Oh, but Ed, I'm an old dog, I can't learn new tricks. It's what I said to myself for 2.5 years. Oh, this is it for me now. I'm done. Okay. What if I'm not? What next? And so, yeah, I'll stop talking now and hand back over to Tom. Cheers, everybody. Much appreciated.